Eerily, the wind suddenly dropped as I approached this building. Majdanek, little white house, pre-war house of the city dog catcher. During the occupation, it housed SS physician and head of the prisoner camp, Anton Thumann. I'm rather relieved not to be able to go into that house, because I'm sure the work of that physician was more the work of an absolute monster. I've perhaps chosen an inappropriate day, given the bright sunshine and warm weather. 24 degrees. It all seems too lovely. And given the strange weather patterns in Europe these days, I could see that tomorrow the temperature will be only 14. That's right, 10 degrees less. And it occurred to me it would be far more appropriate to bring me closer, perhaps, just a little bit closer, to how life in this concentration camp was, for as short as it lasted for the inmates. If I came here on a cold day, I always think concentration and extermination camps and other such terrifying places really belong in the cold of winter. Cremation pyres. The corpses of the Majdanek victims were originally buried in mass graves. Sometimes there really aren't no words for what humans on this planet are capable of. There's some general information here. The museum may be visited either individually or in groups. It is not advisable that children under 14 visit the grounds and the buildings of the former concentration camp at Majdanek. Admission to the museum is free of charge. Field 1. At the turn of 1941 and 1942, the first prisoners were kept here, largely Soviet prisoners of war, Jews from Lublin and the surrounding area, and inhabitants of the Lublin district, most of whom were farmers arrested as hostages for either failing to abide by Nazi laws requiring them to supply food, or for working for the resistance movement. In 1942, a camp hospital, the so-called Revier, was established in the northern row of the barracks. One of the barracks housed the main camp office, Lager Schreibstube, where the detailed files of prisoners were kept. Bad und Desinfektion 1. I'm questioning whether I even want to go in here. Given the purpose of this place being maintained and kept open, people are encouraged to come here in order that we don't forget, I suppose. If you can stomach it, then enter. Gosh, I sometimes wonder if I'm a little too sensitive to come into such places. Again, that word pathetic comes to mind. After the newly arrived prisoners had their hair cut, they usually had to immerse themselves in concrete tubs filled with a disinfectant. Then they were hastily bathed. The SS personnel treated all victims brought to Majdanek, including the most seriously ill, in a likewise manner. Later, during their stay in the camp, the prisoners rarely had the opportunity to wash themselves in the showers. The bathhouse for women was located in the neighbouring barracks. Herded like animals. Oh. They ordered the prisoners to undress. Next, they herded the prisoners into the smallest stone gas chamber and gassed them. To the best of my recollection, this did not last more than 5 minutes, and then no more screams could be heard. Excerpt from a testimony by a German prisoner, Georg Gröne. A man who survived to bear witness. I wonder whether he wished he had perished, or whether he could somehow live with the nightmares of what he saw here. The gas chambers were for a year, from September 1942, orderlies from the German personnel of KL Lublin exterminated Jewish women and men who, under the criteria of the SS, were deemed unfit for labour. Until the late spring of 1943, also the infirm male prisoners of other nationalities selected from the camp hospital, mostly Poles, were murdered here. In a smaller gas chamber, the victims were killed with Zyklon B supplied through a hole in the ceiling, as well as with carbon monoxide. The gas was pumped into both chambers through metal pipes mounted along the walls and connected to steel cylinders in the annex. From that room, the SS men partaking in the extermination procedure were able to observe the course of gassing through a barred window. Why on earth would you wish to observe the horrors that you're inflicting on others? Unless you were the worst type of creature on the planet. And yet we know the very same people would spend time with their families when not in the service of the SS, on holidays, on leave, before the war, and perhaps some who escaped punishment even after the war. And their behaviour, their conduct, seemingly normal. How on earth does that happen? Unfortunate, I suppose, to be almost alone walking around the site today. Perhaps that's because of the lateness of the hour. And I certainly wouldn't wish to be here if there were groups of people or individuals laughing and joking and shoving and just on a day out. The gate opened and we were shoved into the chaos. We found ourselves in the human anthill. We looked at each other and understood instantly. We were trapped. I can't help thinking as I'm walking around here, seeing a few examples of prisoners who did manage to escape, for however fleetingly. There's a movie from about 40 years ago, perhaps a little more, called Escape from Sobibor. And of course, it's not Escape from Majdanek. It refers to a different concentration camp. It features that outstanding actor from the Netherlands, Rutger Hauer, among many others. And I don't know how well the movie has stood up through time. It certainly resonated with me. The quandary of the Jewish barber who, at the outset of the prisoner's plan to escape, was tasked with murdering a German officer, and yes, the difference between somebody who is just an ordinary man driven as a last resort to commit such a terrible deed, what he went through, coming to terms with the fact that basically it was a him or me situation if he was to survive, and if the others who were trying to escape were to survive. But nonetheless, it seems that murdering people when you're in a uniform and given a gun is far easier than if you're just an ordinary man in the street who would never contemplate doing such a thing. Litewski Square, built in the 1820s, is the most representative square of Lublin. During the occupation, it was used for propaganda purposes. In September 1940, German authorities held a ceremony here to celebrate the first anniversary of the victory over Poland, and the square was renamed Adolf Hitler Platz. After the Third Reich invaded the Soviet Union, the progress of the German army on the Eastern Front was presented here by means of audio messages and a table showing the map of Europe. In the immediate vicinity of the square, there was the Europa Hotel, which had been built in the years 1865 to 1867. During the occupation, the hotel housed the propaganda department of the Lublin district, which was responsible for the press and announcements, but also for promoting the idea of the Germanness of Lublin. Also a pre-war building of the Lublin Industrialists Bank, located on the corner of Krakowski-Przedmieście Street and former Spitalna Street, today's Kołątaja Street, was converted into the Deutsches Haus, a restaurant, hotel and club only for the Germans. Decorated with the flags featuring swastikas, it was supposed to be a symbol of German rule in the city. The restaurant was also visited by members of the Majdanek camp crew. So from this plan we can see that the camp was actually intended to be far larger than it actually was. About 1/3 the size of what was originally planned.
Отче наш, що єси на небесах, нехай святиться ім'я Твоє, нехай прийде царство Твоє, нехай буде воля Твоя, як на небі, так і на землі.
Too easy to forget how many victims from across the whole of Europe perished at the hands of Nazi Germany in these concentration and extermination camps. This is why we simply can't say, "Oh, but I wasn't Jewish. Oh, but I wasn't Polish."
Ojcze nasz, któryś jest w niebie, święć się imię Twoje. Przyjdź królestwo Twoje. Bądź wola Twoja jako w niebie, tak i na ziemi. Chleba naszego powszedniego daj nam dzisiaj i odpuść nam nasze winy, jako i my odpuszczamy naszym winowajcom. Nie wódź nas na pokuszenie, ale nas zbaw od złego.
Excuse me, where are you from?
From England.
England. Thank you very much.
Questa urna, se uno il prigioniero dovesse stare bruciato, quindi vengono e poi se loro nie to jest typ musiała już, to jest gdzie u nas instancja, to jest pensavo che su fatti
La bagniamo come se fosse come se fosse
Born in 1923 in Norway, Alf Knudsen was arrested on the 5th of September 1942 while attempting to cross the border with Sweden. In February 1943, he was transferred to KL Sachsenhausen. He spent several months in Revier, the camp hospital. In February 1944, he was deported to Majdanek and after 8 days transferred to the labour camp at 7 Lipova Street in Lublin. He was employed there as a carpenter. In July 1944, he was evacuated to KL Auschwitz, and from there he was taken further to the Buchenwald and Neuengamme camps. And if you have a reason for wishing to particularly locate, identify a member of the prisoners or their captors, details of exterminations and those who worked here, well, seems here is the opportunity for you to delve back in time and discover more about your ancestors and what they did during the war. Portraits of Belarusian children made by Helena Kurciusz.
Together with a disturbance in the morning, the cockroach started. A communist, well-known communist, Helena Kunsa, crowed like a cock. Cock-a-doodle-doo. And I said, hello, hello, good morning, ladies. It's Radio Majdanek. Today it is, let's say, 13th of February. We seem to have started. And I said what would happen to us and that we were closer to freedom with each passing day. And after a couple of days, I also said, hello, hello, good evening, everyone. We are finishing this day. And smile, it's going to be a better day tomorrow.
There are a number of these barracks buildings which are open to the public. I'm not intending to go into each and every one of them. Again, this isn't a tick, tick, tick. I've seen everything, I've been everywhere type exercise. And also I think I want to give you as much possible reason as I can to come here for yourself. And by showing absolutely everything that's here, which would be impossible given the restrictions of the length of the video I could post, I would urge you to come here yourself and discover more. The column of 3 eagles, designed by Albin Maria Boniecki. It was erected by Polish political prisoners on the camp authorities' order in the spring of 1943. Germans conceived it as a decoration of Field 3. It was the first monument to the victims of Majdanek, as some ashes from the camp crematorium were secretly placed inside the base. Death is here. Camps of the Third Reich. There will be no mercy now. Anyone standing in our way will be cut down. So said Adolf Hitler, apparently. Political opponents, persons declared asocial, criminals, homosexuals, Sinti and Roma people, Jews and Jehovah's Witnesses. The aim was to exploit the prisoners as free labor, isolate and ultimately exterminate them. They are alive but already dead. Sick prisoners were put to death with injections of phenyl, evipan or kerosene.
Ale przeprawowy jest 2 razy cięższy od zwykłego takiego.
Quasi-medical experiments on prisoners became more and more common. The researchers were seeking new treatment methods to increase survivability of German soldiers and civilians facing cold, hunger, wounds and infectious diseases. Mother, run away, death is here, run away fast. An estimated 130,000 prisoners passed through Majdanek camp. 80,000 were murdered or died of disease or hunger. A field of crows, a feast for crows. A madness to drive Vincent to cut off his ear. The main crematorium of the camp at Majdanek was situated close to the hospital barracks in Field 5. It was built by a German company. The bottom part of the building was made of brick, whilst the upper section was wooden. The building consisted of 12 rooms with a central hall where a set of 5 furnaces for burning corpses was located. The building was surrounded by a double barbed wire fence. The crematorium started operating in late 1943. On July 22nd, 1944, the day of the camp's final evacuation, the SS set the building on fire together with the corpses of their last victims. The upper part of the crematorium was rebuilt in 1945, however the office and door separating the central hall and furnaces from the rest of the building was never reconstructed. Significant works clearly underway here regarding the mausoleum. And perhaps this is a fitting place to thank you for joining me on this walk today, and monsters and men and women and children. I'll see you next time, perhaps for a more happily themed walkie-talkie traveller video. Try not to have nightmares. Adios.